The smell of motor oil and metal shavings still clung to my uniform as I pulled into my driveway. 12 hours at the shop, dead tired, just wanting to see my baby, my 1967 Camaro SS that I'd spent 18 months rebuilding from a rust bucket into perfection. I hit the garage remote. The door groaned open, revealing chrome that could blind you and paint so deep you could swim in it. That's when my world exploded. A neighbor screamed, "Someone call 911! He stole my car!" My HOA president neighbor, Rachel, came charging across the lawn like a rabid pit bull, cell phone already pressed to her ear. "Yes, there's a black man stealing my car right this second. Send everyone!" Police sirens were already wailing in the distance. She'd called before even confronting me. I was standing in my own driveway, holding my own keys, looking at my own car, about to be accused of theft. What would you do if your neighbor weaponized the police against you in your own driveway? My name is Marcus, and I'm a third-generation mechanic. My grandfather taught my father taught me, and we've been keeping cars running in this town for 60 years. When my divorce finalized last spring, thanks to my ex-wife's sudden discovery that grease under fingernails isn't sexy, I used what little I had left to buy a modest house in Willowbrook Estates, a middle-class HOA community where the lawns are perfect, the mailboxes match, and everyone minds their own damn business, or so the real estate agent promised. The Camaro wasn't some midlife crisis purchase. I found her at an estate sale 18 months ago, a rusted-out corpse that most people would have hauled to the scrapyard for $30. But underneath all that decay, I saw pure American muscle waiting to breathe again. $3,200 later, she was mine. Every weekend for a year and a half became my personal resurrection project. New 350 small block, rebuilt turbo 400 transmission, complete suspension overhaul. The paint job alone took 4 months of sanding, priming, and wet sanding until the Hugger orange finish could blind low-flying aircraft. I documented every bolt, every gasket, every drop of sweat with photos for insurance purposes and kept every receipt in a 3-ring binder thicker than a phone book. The smell of fresh primer and metal shavings became my Saturday morning cologne. Coffee growing cold on my workbench while I lost myself in the meditation of mechanical perfection. Enter Rachel Walker, the human embodiment of a homeowners association fever dream. Rachel moved to Willowbrook 5 years ago and immediately appointed herself queen of everything. A manicured real estate agent who drives a white BMW that gets detailed more often than most people shower. Manicured nails that have never touched actual work, hair that defied gravity, and a smile that could freeze antifreeze. She'd been HOA president for 3 years running, unopposed because nobody else wanted to volunteer for neighborhood Gestapo duty. Her specialty was weaponizing paperwork, trash cans left out 12 minutes past pickup, fence posts measuring 2 1/8 inches instead of the regulation 2 inches, mailbox fonts that weren't Willowbrook approved. The woman once cited me for grass that allegedly exceeded the 2.5-inch maximum. She showed up with an actual ruler. 2 weeks before the garage door incident, she marched over while I was bleeding brake lines. My impact wrench apparently offended her delicate sensibilities. "Excuse me, but there's a noise ordinance, no power tools after 6 p.m. I wiped my hands on a shop rag, staying diplomatic. "Actually, city ordinance permits hobby work until 9 p.m. Happy to show you the documentation." Her smile turned arctic. "Well, we'll see about that." "This kind of industrial activity affects property values," she said, as if I were running a meth lab instead of restoring American history. The day everything exploded started with Rachel's monthly pool party extravaganza. Saturday morning, her backyard filled with neighborhood wives sipping mimosas and pretending to care about each other's vacation photos. I could hear the artificial laughter through my garage walls. Then her voice cut through the chatter like fingernails on glass. "Oh, that's my new Camaro. Just bought it from a classic car dealer in Phoenix. $45,000, but totally worth it. They're shipping it next week." My socket wrench clattered to the concrete floor. She was showing people photos on her phone, a car identical to mine, basking in their impressed coos like she'd personally invented the combustion engine. That afternoon, I fired up my baby and backed out slowly to get brake fluid, the 350's rumble, echoing off the houses like mechanical thunder, deep, primal, and absolutely gorgeous. When I returned an hour later, Rachel stood in her driveway like a statue of suburban rage, arms crossed, face flushed, staring at my car with the intensity of a hawk watching a field mouse. I nodded politely. She didn't respond, just kept boring holes through my Camaro with those predator eyes. That night she spent hours online building her delusion brick by digital brick, convincing herself that somehow I'd stolen her imaginary purchase. By morning, she'd transformed from annoying neighbor into something far more dangerous, a Karen with a cause. When 2 patrol cars screeched into my driveway with full light shows blazing, I knew my peaceful Saturday evening was officially screwed. 4 officers poured out like they were responding to an armed bank robbery. Officer Harris, a 20-year veteran with kind eyes and the patient demeanor of someone who'd seen every flavor of neighborhood crazy, approached with his hand resting casually on his belt. His partner, a younger guy named Cole who looked like he bench-pressed squad cars for cardio, flanked him with notebook ready. "Evening, sir. We received a report about a stolen vehicle at this address. The sheer absurdity hit me like a brick to the forehead. This is my car in my garage at my house. That's like saying I stole my own refrigerator." Rachel materialized beside the officers like a suburban poltergeist, clutching her phone with white knuckles. "That's him. That's the car thief. I just bought that exact Camaro yesterday for $45,000. I took a deep breath, tasting the lingering exhaust fumes from my perfectly legal muscle car and trying not to laugh at the cosmic joke my life had become. "Stay calm," I reminded myself. My old man always said, "Documentation beats desperation every time." "Officers, I can prove ownership right now." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the photo album I'd obsessively maintained. This car has been mine for 18 months. I rebuilt every bolt from scratch. Officer Harris studied the progression. Photos with genuine interest, rust bucket to rolling chassis to painted perfection. His eyebrows climbed as he swiped through images of me installing the engine block, priming body panels, stitching the interior. "That's some serious craftsmanship," he murmured, zooming in on a shot of the engine bay. "You do this professionally?" "Family business," I said. My grandfather would have beaten me with a wrench if I'd done sloppy work. Meanwhile, Rachel was having what appeared to be a full psychological break. "He's lying. Look at these." She thrust printed photos at the officers, clearly downloaded from some dealer website 5 minutes before calling 911. "I wired the money yesterday. They were shipping it this week." Officer Daniels examined her evidence with the enthusiasm of someone reviewing tax documents. Generic dealer stock photos, no VN numbers, no actual paperwork, just glossy images. That could have been any orange Camaro built between 1967 and yesterday. "Ma'am, do you have purchase documentation, bill of sale, wire transfer receipts, dealer contact information?" Rachel's face turned the approximate color of a fire engine. "It's all being processed. The dealer said paperwork takes time for classic cars." While she improvised, I was digging through my garage workbench like an automotive archaeologist. 3-ring binder organized by date containing the complete genealogy of my mechanical baby. "Here's my DMV registration," I said, handing Officer Harris the holy grail of vehicle ownership, registration in my name, this address, matching VN. His flashlight beam danced across the official state document. Everything aligned perfectly. Numbers, dates, signatures, insurance policy, too. I flipped to the next plastic sleeve. Progressive had required photos of the restoration progress for agreed value coverage. Officer Daniels scribbled notes, occasionally glancing at Rachel's increasingly creative explanations. She was unraveling faster than a clearance sweater. "Ma'am, I need to inform you that filing a false police report is a misdemeanor offense. In this state, Officer Harris said, adopting the register cops reserve for public meltdowns. My dad was a prosecutor for 30 years. I'd seen people get real jail time for knowingly giving false information to law enforcement. From the very back of my binder, I extracted a piece of yellow legal paper, edges soft from handling and memory, written, in the shaky cursive of a 93-year-old widow, 1967 Chevrolet Camaro. Condition as is, extensive rust damage throughout, $3,200 cash, buyer assumes all responsibility. Below that, a signature that belonged in a museum, Evelyn Hart, estate sale, followed by a phone number and a date from 18 months prior. Officer Harris examined the handwritten bill of sale like he'd discovered buried treasure. This was the original purchase document. The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear my neighbor's sprinkler system 3 houses down. Officer Daniels closed his notebook with the finality of a judge's gavel. Ma'am, this gentleman has clear chain of ownership documentation spanning over a year. Your evidence appears to be internet printouts. Rachel's color drained. There must be some terrible mistake, she said, fumbling. The stress of car shopping. But her eyes told a different story. As the officers prepared to leave, I caught her staring at me through her living room window with the cold calculation of a chess master planning her next move. This wasn't over. This was just round one. Monday morning slapped me awake with the subtlety of a diesel engine backfiring. I was stumbling to my mailbox in yesterday's work clothes when I spotted the official HOA violation notice tucked inside like a venomous snake. Notice of covenant violation. Unauthorized commercial vehicle storage. The citation claimed my work van, a perfectly ordinary Ford Transit with Bennett Family Auto painted on the side, violated community standards. $200 fine, 48-hour compliance deadline. At the bottom, Rachel's signature flourished like she'd just signed my death warrant. Through my kitchen window, I watched her power walk past my driveway, shooting glances at my van like it was parked on her grandmother's grave. I counted her morning jog passes by my house, 17. Here's what most homeowners don't realize about HOA covenants. They're actual legal contracts, not suggestions scribbled by suburban dictators having midlife crises. My divorce lawyer taught me that everything has a paper trail and paper trails don't lie. I spent my lunch break at the county courthouse digging through public records like an automotive archaeologist. What I discovered was better than finding a winning lottery ticket in my back pocket. My van was purchased in 2017, 3 years before Willowbrook enacted their commercial vehicle. Restrictions in 2020. Any vehicles owned before rule changes are automatically grandfathered in, protected by law from retroactive enforcement. Rachel could complain until her vocal cords snapped, but she had zero legal authority. I drafted a response that would have made my old man proud, attached copies of my purchase documentation, and hand-delivered it to the HOA management office. The receptionist's eyes widened as she read my rebuttal, probably calculating how much trouble her starboard member had just bought herself. "Oh dear," she whispered like she was watching a car accident in slow motion. "Miss Walker isn't going to appreciate this development." She had that right. By Wednesday, my mailbox had become Rachel's personal complaint distribution center. 3 more violation notices materialized like bad magic. Alleged oil stains on my driveway, I power wash monthly. Excessive automotive odors from my garage, apparently the honest smell of WD-40 affronted her delicate sensibilities, and noise violations during perfectly legal hours. She was carpet bombing me with paperwork, hoping something would stick long enough to cause damage. That's when I made the smartest investment of this entire war. I went full Big Brother on my own property. 4 high-def security cameras strategically positioned, all recording to cloud storage with night vision that could spot a mosquito landing on my mailbox. The footage revealed Rachel's new hobby, property line surveillance. Every morning she'd patrol our shared fence with her iPhone, taking photos, measuring distances with a collapsible yardstick that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She had turned neighbor watching into an Olympic sport. Thursday night's nuclear option arrived as an emergency board meeting to address my ongoing violations. The notice appeared in my mailbox at 4 p.m. for a 7 p.m. meeting, barely legal notification designed to prevent anyone from mounting a defense. I showed up at the community center expecting a kangaroo court and found something worse. 3 middle-aged women sitting around a conference table like they were planning a church fundraiser. Rachel, her nervous Lieutenant Chloe, who apologized for breathing too loudly, and Jill, whose primary qualification appeared to be nodding enthusiastically at everything Rachel said. "Where's the rest of the board?" I asked, taking a chair across from the improvised tribunal. "This is quite sufficient for tonight's business," Rachel said. "We're implementing an emergency ban on all automotive repair activities, effective immediately. Past violations carry a $500 fine." I pulled out my phone and opened the HOA bylaws I'd memorized that afternoon. Section 4.3 required 7 days advance notice for voting matters. Section 4.7 mandated a quorum of 5 board members for official votes. I looked around the pathetically empty room. I counted 3 people. This meeting had the legal authority of a neighborhood book club. Chloe's face turned the color of overcooked shrimp. "Well, this is just preliminary discussion," she stammered. Section 2.9 states that invalid meetings create personal liability for individual board members. Knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is a tactical nuclear weapon. I unloaded the bylaws like evidence at trial. Rachel's composure shattered like safety glass. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Coming into our neighborhood with your people and your activities." The venom in her voice could have stripped paint. But my old man taught me something valuable about dealing with bullies. Stay calm. Stick to facts. Let crazy people hang themselves with their own rope. Later that day, neighbor Ethan appeared in my driveway, apologetic and slightly embarrassed. "Most of us think she's completely lost it," he confided. "Want to grab coffee tomorrow? I think it's time we talked." Friday morning brought an unexpected doorbell symphony at 7:15 a.m. Daniel Price from City Code Enforcement stood on my porch, clipboard in hand and the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd spent too many years mediating neighbor wars. "Sorry to bother you this early, Mr. Bennett. Anonymous complaint about unlicensed commercial auto repair. Mind if I take a look?" I led him into my garage where the morning light illuminated my weekend sanctuary. The smell of motor oil and metal polish hung in the air like expensive aftershave. Every tool had its designated home on pegboard walls that would make a Swiss watchmaker weep with envy. Daniel's tension evaporated the moment he stepped inside. "Jesus, this is cleaner than the shop where I get my truck serviced." He ran his finger along my workbench, coming up spotless. "What do you do for work?" he asked. "Family mechanic business. This is pure hobby. Weekends only. No customers?" He nodded, scribbling notes while admiring my engine hoist setup. "Anonymous complainant claimed you were running an illegal business. I see 0 evidence of commercial activity, customer vehicles, or cash transactions. You're absolutely golden." As Daniel climbed back into his city truck, he paused with 1 foot on the running board. "Off the record, I've been to this neighborhood 4 times this month. Same voice every time. Different complaints. Lady needs a hobby that doesn't involve my department." Rachel's next masterstroke arrived via certified mail. A formal complaint to my homeowner's insurance company claiming my garage activities created an unacceptable fire hazard threatening neighboring properties. The letter demanded immediate inspection or policy cancellation. When my insurance agent Ben showed up Tuesday afternoon, I braced for bureaucratic hell. Instead, I found a kindred spirit who spent the first 10 minutes admiring my Camaro's engine bay like it was the Sistine Chapel. "Someone's definitely trying to screw with you," he said, signing his inspection report with a flourish. "Your fire safety setup exceeds commercial standards. Half these neighborhood garages are death traps with their propane tanks and extension cord Christmas trees." Ben's company responded by sending Rachel a cease and desist letter that basically read, "Stop filing false insurance claims or we'll prosecute you for fraud." But Rachel discovered the nuclear weapon of modern warfare, social media. The Willowbrook Neighborhood Watch Facebook group materialized overnight like a digital cancer. Rachel's inaugural post featured photos of my work van and garage, accompanied by prose that would make a dog whistle manufacturer proud. "Just concerned about maintaining our beautiful community standards," she wrote, with enough artificial sweetness to cause diabetes. 23 people joined in the first hour. The comment section became a gladiatorial arena. Several neighbors jumped to my defense, sharing their own Rachel horror stories. Others lurked silently, calculating the social cost of opposing the HOA's reigning dictator. Rachel's digital dictatorship imploded when she started deleting disagreeable comments. Nothing ignites suburban fury quite like obvious censorship, and soon the group fractured into warring factions debating everything from free speech to property values. Sunday morning brought escalation to my actual property. Roofing nails scattered across my driveway like metallic confetti, 24, strategically positioned to puncture unwary tires. My security cameras captured the 2 a.m. perpetrator, a figure in a dark hoodie moving with the nervous energy of someone committing their first felony. The footage was grainy, but that distinctive quick-step march looked familiar. Rachel walked like she was perpetually late for an argument. Officer Cole treated my police report with appropriate seriousness, especially when I explained the escalating harassment timeline. Classic intimidation pattern, he observed, photographing the evidence. Document everything. These cases simmer for months, then explode into arrests very quickly. While obsessively reviewing camera footage, I spotted something that made my coffee go cold. Rachel's morning routine now included detailed reconnaissance missions, walking our property line with her phone, measuring distances, photographing angles. This wasn't random harassment. She was conducting military-grade surveillance for some larger operation. Wednesday's mail delivered the nuclear option, an anonymous letter on generic printer paper. Your kind doesn't belong here. Leave voluntarily or face escalating consequences. No signature, no return address, but the paper stock matched Rachel's HOA notices perfectly. My divorce lawyer had taught me enough about document analysis to recognize identical watermarks and printer signatures. Detective Morales, assigned to my growing case file, examined the letter with professional interest. Anonymous threatening correspondence qualifies for hate crime prosecution under both state and federal statutes, she explained. We're building a substantial criminal case against your neighbor. That evening, Ethan's coffee shop coalition expanded to 6 households, each armed with their own Rachel documentation. Mason Parker, the lawyer, Samantha Moore, the forensic accountant, Laura Hayes, the high school teacher with NASA-level organization skills, and Caleb Morris, a contractor who knew building code loopholes, joined our ragtag resistance. Time for coordinated resistance, Ethan declared, stirring sugar with revolutionary fervor. Individual complaints get ignored. Group action gets results. I spent Friday afternoon in the county courthouse basement, a fluorescent-lit purgatory that smelled like old coffee and bureaucratic despair. The records clerk, someone who'd apparently been filing documents since the Carter administration, directed me to research Room B with the enthusiasm of someone pointing toward a public restroom. HOA financial records are in the corporate filings, she wheezed, sliding a dusty box across the counter. 3 hours later, surrounded by paper stacks that looked like a tornado had hit an accounting firm, I discovered why Rachel guarded these documents like nuclear launch codes. Willowbrook's HOA financial statements read like a masterclass in creative embezzlement. $15,000 paid to BNB Property Solutions for undefined consulting services. $8,500 to Walker's Best Gardens for landscaping that never materialized. $12,000 to Walker and Associates for legal services that coincidentally began exactly when Rachel's divorce proceedings started. The beautiful part, every one of those companies shared the same business address, 1247 Maple Lane. A quick dive into the state business registry confirmed what my gut already knew. BNB Property Solutions, sole proprietor Rachel Walker, had been established 6 months after her divorce filing. Walker's Best Gardens officially dissolved last year after completing 0 actual projects. Walker and Associates explained her sudden need for untraceable income. Our elected HOA president had been systematically looting the neighborhood fund like a suburban Pablo Escobar, funneling approximately $78,000 into her personal legal defense fund over 2 years. But the discovery that made my hands shake wasn't the theft itself. It was the hunting pattern beneath. Cross-referencing complaint dates with recent real estate sales revealed Rachel's true business model. She systematically targeted homeowners with escalating harassment until they sold below market value. then used her real estate license to facilitate quick sales to investor contacts. Double commission plus kickbacks from grateful buyers picking up distressed properties. 3 families had fled Willowbrook in the past year after surviving Rachel's special attention. The Hendersons sold $40,000 under appraisal after months of citations about their son's basketball hoop. The Patels surrendered and moved after weekly violations for culturally inappropriate cooking odors. My case fit her playbook perfectly. Single homeowner, no family support network, prime property worth $380,000. Perfect prey for forced sale manipulation. The nuclear revelation was buried in a stack of foreclosure notices. When I found it, I actually laughed aloud in that tomb-quiet research room. Rachel's own house was in default. $23,000 in unpaid HOA dues to her own association. Back taxes, attorney fees, credit card debt, the works. Her foreclosure hearing was scheduled exactly 4 weeks from the day I discovered it. The irony belonged in a country song. Everything clicked into focus like adjusting a camera lens, the escalating desperation, the increasingly unhinged harassment, the willingness to file false police reports. Rachel wasn't just a power-hungry tyrant. She was a cornered animal facing financial obliteration, and I represented her last chance at a major commission before the bank seized everything. I photocopied everything, my hands trembling slightly as the machine hummed through page after page of evidence. $17 for the privilege of documenting my neighbor's criminal enterprise. The best money I'd ever spent. Walking back to my truck in the courthouse parking lot, I called Ethan with news that would reshape our entire strategy. You sitting down? Because what I just found changes everything. The war was about to shift from survival to offense, and Rachel had no idea the trap was closing around her. Saturday morning transformed Ethan's garage into mission control for Operation Takedown Karen. The air smelled like coffee, motor oil, and the sweet scent of impending justice. Our motley crew of suburban rebels gathered around a folding table that had seen better decades. Samantha spread Rachel's financial records across the table like a CSI investigator examining murder evidence. Mason, the semi-retired corporate lawyer whose idea of fun was destroying people in depositions, scanned documents with the predatory focus of a shark smelling blood. 78,000 in fraudulent transactions, he said. Paper trail cleaner than my grandmother's kitchen. Laura launched into full teacher mode, creating a signature color-coded timeline on poster board that mapped harassment campaigns against real estate sales with the precision of someone who'd spent 20 years making teenagers understand algebra. Look at this beautiful pattern, she said, pointing. Target vulnerable families, escalate violations for months, then mysteriously produce investor buyers when they break. Caleb leaned back and whistled. And she's using HOA money to pay divorce lawyers. That's not criminal genius. That's criminal stupid. Our battle plan emerged over 2 hours of caffeinated strategy sessions. Operation Documentation Fortress. Turn our neighborhood into Fort Knox with security cameras, motion sensors, night vision, and cloud backup. If Rachel even glanced sideways at your mailbox, we'd have it documented in courtroom quality 4K. Laura created standardized incident report forms, dates, times, witnesses, photographs, police report numbers, building case files airtight enough to survive a nuclear blast. Samantha called in favors to produce an independent audit that met federal court standards. Operation Legal Annihilation, she called it. Mason explained HOA corporate governance like he was describing his favorite hobby, which apparently it was. Board members have fiduciary duties under state law. Every fraudulent transaction creates personal liability. Criminal complaints would be filed on Tuesday. Embezzlement, harassment, false police reports. Rachel was looking at a felony buffet. Operation Public Humiliation fell to Laura's propaganda department. Professional flyers explaining the theft. Coordinated social media exposure. We would make Rachel's crimes everybody's dinner table. Saturday morning transformed Ethan's garage into mission control for Operation Takedown Karen. The air smelled like coffee, motor oil, and the sweet scent of impending justice. Our motley crew of suburban rebels gathered around a folding table that had seen better decades. Samantha spread Rachel's financial records across the table like a CSI investigator examining murder evidence. Mason, the semi-retired corporate lawyer whose idea of fun was destroying people in depositions, scanned documents with the predatory focus of a shark smelling blood. 78,000 in fraudulent transactions, he said. Paper trail cleaner than my grandmother's kitchen. Laura launched into full teacher mode, creating a signature color-coded timeline on poster board that mapped harassment campaigns against real estate sales with the precision of someone who'd spent 20 years making teenagers understand algebra. Look at this beautiful pattern, she said, pointing. Target vulnerable families, escalate violations for months, then mysteriously produce investor buyers when they break. Caleb leaned back and whistled. And she's using HOA money to pay divorce lawyers. That's not criminal genius. That's criminal stupid. Our battle plan emerged over 2 hours of caffeinated strategy sessions. Operation Documentation Fortress. Turn our neighborhood into Fort Knox with security cameras, motion sensors, night vision, and cloud backup. If Rachel even glanced sideways at your mailbox, we'd have it documented in courtroom quality 4K. Laura created standardized incident report forms, dates, times, witnesses, photographs, police report numbers, building case files airtight enough to survive a nuclear blast. Samantha called in favors to produce an independent audit that met federal court standards. Operation Legal Annihilation, she called it. Mason explained HOA corporate governance like he was describing his favorite hobby, which apparently it was. Board members have fiduciary duties under state law. Every fraudulent transaction creates personal liability. Criminal complaints would be filed on Tuesday. Embezzlement, harassment, false police reports. Rachel was looking at a felony buffet. Operation Public Humiliation fell to Laura's propaganda department. Professional flyers explaining the theft. Coordinated social media exposure. We would make Rachel's crimes everybody's dinner table conversation. By Monday morning, our fortress was live. Ethan's tech-savvy nephew installed enough surveillance equipment to rival a Vegas casino. Every driveway, mailbox, and common area now lived under constant observation. Rachel's morning jog transformed into a paranoid obstacle course. Every time she lifted her phone for another surveillance photo, half a dozen lenses stared back. The first major skirmish arrived Wednesday evening. Rachel attempted to serve me with another violation, oil stains on my driveway. This time, instead of arguing, I invited her to examine the freshly power-washed concrete while 3 cameras recorded every angle. Laura, pretending to water her front garden, captured the entire exchange on her phone. Rachel's smile cracked like thin ice when I pointed to the cameras. False citation on record with video evidence. That's harassment, Rachel. Her eyes flickered. For the first time since this nightmare began, she realized the battlefield had shifted. Friday morning, Mason filed the first wave of complaints at the county clerk's office. Embezzlement, fraud, harassment, misuse of HOA funds. By lunch, Detective Morales confirmed the criminal investigation had officially expanded. Rachel Walker was now the subject of an active financial crimes inquiry. But Rachel didn't retreat. She escalated. Saturday night, Caleb's truck tires mysteriously exploded after nails appeared in his driveway. The cameras caught everything. 2:13 a.m., Rachel in her bathrobe, scattering hardware store nails with the desperation of a gambler throwing dice. The footage went viral in our private group chat. Caleb laughed while holding up the repair invoice. She's paying for this in court costs. Worth every penny. Sunday brought another escalation. Ethan's mailbox ripped out and dumped in his front yard. The cameras again delivered 4K evidence of Rachel's midnight vandalism spree. Detective Morales didn't even bother hiding her grin when I emailed the files. This is textbook escalation, she said. You're building one hell of a case. Meanwhile, Samantha's audit uncovered even darker secrets. Rachel hadn't just funneled HOA money into fake companies. She'd been double-billing landscaping projects, paying herself twice for non-existent services, and fabricating maintenance emergencies to justify withdrawals. Total theft now exceeded $112,000. Laura's flyers hit the neighborhood Monday morning like a bomb. Professionally designed, color-coded, citing exact figures with screenshots of fraudulent transactions. By noon, half the community center's bulletin board was plastered with anti-Rachel evidence. Someone even taped one to her BMW's windshield. Rachel responded with fury, posting a 12-paragraph manifesto in the neighborhood watch group about jealous troublemakers spreading lies. But the damage was done. Comments flooded in from residents demanding an emergency election. Mason filed the official petition within hours, 43 signatures calling for her immediate removal. The HOA board meeting that Wednesday was standing room only. Neighbors packed the community center, murmuring like a restless jury. Rachel sat at the head table, composure cracking, sweat shining under fluorescent lights. Mason presented our evidence with the precision of a courtroom assassin. Receipts, financial records, video footage. Samantha explained the accounting fraud in plain English. Laura unveiled her timeline poster with a schoolteacher's flair. Rachel's denials grew shrill, her voice breaking as she accused everyone of conspiring. "This is harassment! This is racism! This is sexism!" But her words bounced off a wall of evidence too thick to penetrate. When Officer Harris and Detective Morales entered midway through the meeting, silence fell like a guillotine. Morales addressed the room calmly. "The district attorney's office has authorized charges of felony embezzlement, fraud, and harassment against Ms. Rachel Walker. Effective immediately, she is removed from HOA leadership pending trial." The collective gasp was followed by thunderous applause. Rachel tried to stand, to shout, but Harris gently guided her toward the exit, reciting her rights as cameras flashed from a half-dozen cell phones. In that moment, the reign of terror ended. The following weeks were a blur of depositions, neighborhood celebrations, and cautious optimism. Rachel's house, already in foreclosure, sold at auction for pennies on the dollar. She never returned to Willowbrook Estates. Rumors swirled about plea bargains and restitution orders, but I didn't care. For the first time in months, I stood in my garage without fear. The smell of motor oil and fresh wax filled the air as I polished the Camaro's chrome, its reflection sharp enough to cut glass. Ethan dropped by with a six-pack, raising a bottle in salute. "To freedom," he said. "To neighborhood justice," I replied. The engine roared to life under my hands, pure American thunder echoing into a night finally free of tyranny. Rachel Walker was gone. Marcus Bennett had won, and Willowbrook Estates would never be the same again. Thanks so much for watching today's HOA Karen Meltdown. If you enjoyed seeing neighbors stand their ground and karma, catch up, smash that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you won't miss the next HOA drama we bring you.